All right, thanks, Brian. Well, last year, synthetic opioid deaths like fentanyl topped 112,000 for the first time. Our next guest lost his youngest son, Joey, what a handsome man, to fentanyl poisoning 2 years ago and blames his death on drugs pouring in from the open southern border. And now he's running for Congress to stop this tragedy from happening to other families. Republican congressional candidate in Indiana, Jamison Carrier, joins us now. Jamison, thanks for joining us now. My heart just breaks looking at your son's picture. Tell us a little bit about Joey.
Yeah, Joey was he's just an incredible person. He lived a full life, and we lost him way too soon, but he was an outdoorsman. He was a hard worker, and he was just someone that everybody loved. And he struggled, he had struggles with addiction, but he certainly never, ever dreamed he would, fentanyl would be in anything. And it's just, it's a tragedy for him.
So, Jamison, this year, 112,000 other people lost their lives to fentanyl poisoning, which is this synthetic opioid. We know where it's coming from. It's coming from China, and it's coming across our southern border. So what's your message to Joe Biden? Because nothing leaves China in that communist country without the Communist Party knowing. So clearly our president could tell Xi Jinping to stop this, but that hasn't happened. What can happen to stop this?
Look, there's a very specific date that we can track our border issues to, and that is the inauguration of President Joe Biden. That is when the border went out of control. President Trump had it down to the lowest numbers that it had been in 45 years. The number one thing that we can do, because obviously President Biden doesn't care about it, we've got to get President Trump reelected, because we know that he will take care of the border situation just like he did before.
Yeah, so the Chinese are providing some of the inputs into the fentanyl. They're working with the cartels. As you said, the border was open. This is when we started to see this rise of fentanyl coming across the border. We've interviewed DEA agents on this show, former DEA agents, who have said this is an actual strategy by the Chinese to weaken us. Tell us about the China connection, why they're involved in this, besides the money part of it.
Yep. Yeah, this is an attack from the Chinese on our nation. It's now the #1 cause of death for those 18 to 45. It's our military age men and women. They have put a very specific attack on us. And again, it's the Chinese. They send it directly into Mexico, and it's coming across our border, which is wide open. And yeah, they're attacking us without firing a shot.
What would you say to families who look at what your family's going through and are worried that this could happen to them? How can they protect their own children?
I mean, to children, I would say, please, don't play around. It's way too serious. And all of us are impacted by this in one way or another.
Yeah.
And, the reason that we're running is, I had a mentor that told me a lot of people think hate is the opposite of love. He said apathy is the opposite of love. So we've got to put our love into action. We love deeply. We have to act.
Yeah. I think it was Mother Teresa who said, love is action. So tell us about your race, because I know you're running in Indiana 6. It's a Republican district, but a very crowded field. And I believe Vivek Ramaswamy has endorsed you.
He sure has. Yeah, we're very grateful for his endorsement. It's serious. There are 7 of us that are in this race. And look, I'm not running against anybody. I'm running for the platform that we're running on. I'm running for the constituents within this district, and we're running to make a difference.
Well, I'm sure your son, Joey, is looking down and proud of you for taking some action on this very tragic situation of our border and the poisoning of our mostly young people in this country. Thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you for highlighting and putting a spotlight on this important issue. Good luck.
Thanks, Rachel.
To make this feeling stronger. anti-Trump pundits are just hailing this new poll by Bloomberg, which shows that Joe Biden is catching up with Donald Trump in three crucial swing states, 45-45 in Pennsylvania and Michigan, and Biden ahead 46-45 in Wisconsin. Now, we're getting a lot of like, I told you so, it was only going to take some time. People will come to their senses from people who are not big fans of the former president, but these are statistical times, which means that either Trump or Biden could be up by a couple of points. So I wonder if you think this is being just a tad overplayed.
Well, it's interesting here, Howie, because the polls are going to go in many different directions, and we're going to see a lot of tumult, and we'll probably see a lot of change. The only thing that matters is how someone actually votes when they either mail in their ballot in a lot of these particularly Democrat-heavy states, or when they're in the polling booth, when they're facing their conscience. I think that we're going to see a big shift. I don't think this is decisive. You also see polls that show that Trump still has a national lead. The Real Clear Politics average still has him up almost 2%.
Any poll is a snapshot, and these things bounce around. Now, very big deal made by CNN, MSNBC, and others about this fundraiser the other night, Obama, Clinton, and Joe Biden. And the New York Times had an interrogation by Stephen Colbert. But the New York Times had a whole piece saying, well, yeah, Biden's not as popular as the other two, but that's because we're in a much more polarizing era. Do you buy that?
No, he's not as popular as the other two because he's not as popular as the other two. And neither is his vice president. You know, Vice President Biden didn't really move the needle. It was President Obama who was the rock star of the administration. But the problem for President Biden is his vice president pulls him down, and by contrast, he just doesn't have the star power, certainly of Obama, but also, to some degree, President Clinton as well. So I don't know if optically this was the best look for the president. I know it's a big cash grab. I don't know if cash is enough to meaningfully move the needle where the Biden camp wants it right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Biden's never been as much of a orator as the other two Democrats we're talking about. So before we go, what is your take on the revolt of the MSNBC liberals against NBC's hiring Ronna McDaniel, ripping the bosses on the air and forcing her to get fired within 4 days despite her big fat contract?
I think the bosses there are soft. I think the lunatics are running the asylum. I think they should all focus on their respective shows. And, you know, NBC was in the right wanting to find a proliferation of voices before the conventions and before the actual election. And, you know, Ronna McDaniel obviously would have been a great choice because she is polarizing. That means people would have tuned in to either grudge watch her or possibly agree with her.
It just is amazing the way in which the NBC caved on this and ultimately had no choice. I think it's been an embarrassing episode all around. Kennedy, great to see you. Thanks so much.